know that folic acid is completely ineffective in some people? In this video I'll explain why and what role your genes play in this. Folic acid is the most commonly taken dietary supplement during pregnancy, and for good reason. Studies since 1994 have shown that it is essential for the health of unborn children. There is a birth defect called spina bifida, in which children are born with an open spine and paralyzed legs. Folic acid is essential in preventing this. If a mother regularly takes folic acid during pregnancy, it reduces the likelihood of this malformation by 70%. The problem, however, is that folic acid is needed particularly in the first weeks of pregnancy. However, half of pregnancies are unplanned. Therefore, countries such as Canada, Costa Rica, Chile, South Africa and the United States have come up with a clever solution. They simply add folic acid to basic foods such as flour for bread. This way, all women are generally supplied with folic acid, whether they want to get pregnant or not. This was, by the way, very successful. This food fortification program is even referred to as the most successful food supplement program in history. In the United States, the rate of this malformation has dropped by 32%. But what about us Europeans? Austria and Germany have discussed this possibility, but ultimately decided against it. And this is a real problem, because the German Society for Nutrition confirms that only about 20% of the population actually get the necessary 400 micrograms of folic acid through food. Just because I'm constantly talking about pregnancy here, folic acid is also important for other people, men and women alike. For example, it is an integral component in protecting against harmful homocysteine. High homocysteine levels in the blood can cause heart and circulatory diseases just like high cholesterol. We all need folic acid for our heart health. If you're thinking, if the state doesn't take care of it, I'll just take folic acid supplements myself and be protected, that's a good start. But now we come to your genes. Now it's getting a bit complicated, so pay attention. So we have the human body that takes a folic acid supplement, and the folic acid enters the bloodstream. But it is not active, meaning it has no health effect on the body yet. Now it's the MTHFR gene's turn. The gene produces the MTHFR protein, and this protein now has the ability to recognize folic acid and chemically convert it into the active form called methylfolate. Only after this conversion does the substance have its actual healthy effect. And now comes the problem. Not everyone has a functional MTHFR gene. Some have inherited genetic defects that disrupt the function of this gene. Folic acid is then taken up, but remains completely ineffective in the body. So simply put, without MTHFR, folic acid is of no use. But there is a trick to avoiding this inherited weakness. We can skip folic acid because the body can't do anything useful with it. If people, however, take the already active form of folic acid, methylfolate, this genetic conversion path is bypassed. Methylfolate therefore also has a healthy effect in people with the MTHFR gene defect. So to summarize, you either have the gene defect or not. There's nothing you can do about it. But it is possible to bypass this genetic deficiency and still benefit from it. But how common are these gene defects? Is it maybe incredibly rare and unlikely protected? Unfortunately, no. But to understand this, we have to go back a step and look at the genes more closely. Firstly, it is important to understand that every person has two copies of the MTHFR gene, one from the father and one from the mother. There are actually two different gene defects in the MTHFR gene that are commonly inherited, one in the front and one in the back of the gene. Both affect the function of MTHFR. Though there are different impairing combinations of these gene defects that affect the activity of MTHFR differently. The most devastating combination of gene defects reduces the activity of MTHFR to 25% of normal conversion ability. This is not enough for the effect of folic acid. About 5% of people have such MTHFR genes. About 34% of people have two completely functional MTHFR genes and can quickly activate folic acid as desired. And then there are different levels in between, with differently active MTHFR genes. Here, folic acid is more or less effective depending on the result. So you can see, folic acid does not work the same way for everyone. And as a scientist, I have to say a few words about the science, because this is where the MTHFR gene shines. We've known about this gene for over 20 years. By now, its function with folic acid has been confirmed in over 300 studies in various populations, and they all came to the same conclusion. If the MTHFR gene doesn't work, folic acid remains ineffective. So this important function of this gene has been proven in more than 300,000 study participants, and the MTHFR gene is one of the best studied nutrigenetic effects we know today. And since we've known about this for so long and still provide pregnant women and people in general with folic acid and just hope it works, it's finally time that we do something useful with this knowledge.